Opposition wants justice for slain policemen. Date set for evidence hearing. And Bushfire's appeal funds into one basket.
This is National EMTV News with Meriba Tulo.
A very good evening. Thank you for joining us. This is National EMTV News. Opposition leader Belda Nama has questioned the police hierarchy on what steps the force is taking to address the killings of policemen. In recent months, a policeman was killed in Tari, another in Madang, and last week Constable Timothy Kavanamur was killed in Porgera, while two of his colleagues were seriously wounded. Mr. Nama says the perpetrators have not been arrested for these serious crimes since 2018.
The recent attack and killing of the late Constable Timothy Kavanamur in Porgera comes 3 weeks after two other mobile squad members based in Western Highlands were also attacked by armed men in Porgera. The body of the late constable was flown to Port Moresby 30 hours after he was killed by armed criminals in Porgera.
Since James Marape took office, it's been unprecedented. Never had before in the history of our country in the last 44 years. In the 10 months, the senseless killing of the law enforcement officers, especially the policemen, has become a grave concern to me as the leader of the opposition.
While the police hierarchy has called for the death penalty to be imposed on those who kill police officers, the opposition leader said police should do their job and arrest the killers.
Lies with the Attorney General's Department, the Judiciary and the Justice Department. The job of the police commissioner is to go out there and arrest those lawbreakers. The recent killing of Kavanamur is uncalled for. We have policemen and women who are out there performing their duties. And for warlords, for criminals to take lives of these law enforcement officers is worse in this country.
Late Kavanamur was part of the deployment to Porgera on 30th December 2019 and had served in Enga for just 26 days until he was attacked and killed. Other serious concerns raised by the opposition leader were on the type of weapons being used by warlords and armed criminals in the Highlands region.
They are not homemade guns. They are factory-made. And they are high-powered guns. Some with telescopic sights on those guns. How do we deal with them?
Meanwhile, the police hierarchy is yet to release details on the funeral arrangements for late Kavanamur. EMTV News is yet to receive an official statement from the Prime Minister's office on recent attacks and killings of police officers. Thekla Gunga, National EMTV News.
Opposition leader Belda Nama is also calling on the government for quick action to secure the PNG-Indonesian border following the outbreak of the deadly coronavirus. Mr. Nama said though it is stated on paper that the border has been shut down, there must be action with quarantine checkpoints and medical and security personnel on the ground.
The opposition leader says the government must be serious about the closure of the PNG-Indonesian border, criticizing the slow response of the government and the Prime Minister not saying anything on the issue as deafening.
In other countries, the governments can respond to such emergencies swiftly. I have to date not had any official statement been released by the Prime Minister.
with the PNG Immigration and Citizenship Authority issuing a temporary shutdown of the Indonesian-shared border. Nama says the country still does not have the capacity to combat the virus.
In Vanimo especially, there are not enough officers there. And not only about the manpower shortage, but we do not have the necessary equipment and the facilities.
However, he suggested the government should look for assistance from our neighbors.
The government should also be looking at trying to talk to our friends like Australia and New Zealand to get the specialists up here. You should make such arrangement.
With the shutdown of the border, it is expected for proper checkpoints to be set up. And the opposition leader says assurance must be given to the people that proper facilities will be set up on the border to protect the country.
Because this thing is serious stuff. It's a deadly virus.
Stanley Over Jr., National EMTV News.
The Anzacs are joining forces once again, this time in a battle to evacuate Kiwis and Australians from the virus danger zone in China. Officials are urgently working out details of the emergency airlift operation, with those brought out of Wuhan to be quarantined. The death toll is now more than 130 and 6,000 confirmed infected. That surpasses the number of cases from the SARS outbreak in 2003.
Nobody around at all.
Stuck at a Chinese hotel. Not the OE 3 18-year-olds from Waikato imagined.
The whole hotel is completely empty.
Falcon Prout, Stefan Thompson and Gaganjot Singh were on the Trans-Siberian Rail Network heading from Beijing to Moscow when they were stopped at the border by Chinese officials in hazmat suits. One News understands they were then pulled off the carriage after Gaganjot was found to have a temperature and a cough. He was taken to hospital, the others put in virtual quarantine at this hotel in Hulunbuir. The Foreign Affairs Ministry says it's provided assistance to the group. No one was found to have coronavirus and there's no suggestion any New Zealanders are in quarantine. It's unclear if the boys are now back together. One of the parents told One News they have received good care from Chinese officials. In Wuhan, the sound of a city in lockdown, residents shouting encouragement to one another across the apartments. All precautions being taken by this pilot as the international evacuation effort ramps up. America and Japan flying hundreds of nationals out.
The moment I sat down on my seat, I fell asleep. I suppose we all felt so relieved and totally exhausted.
Our government working with Australia on an airlift plan.
We're particularly focused on the more vulnerable components of that population. That's young people, particularly infants, and those who are elderly, and that would be our priority in any operation we were able to put in place.
We are very keen that our people in New Zealand and Australia work together on the ground.
The New Zealand government, alongside other countries, now advising against any travel to China. Hong Kong's partially shut off access to the mainland.
We're likely to see a significant increase in the number of cases, particularly in China, before the outbreak comes under control. A lot of the increase we're seeing at the moment is probably related to increased case finding.
The director of the World Health Organization in Beijing to meet China's president, with the city at the centre of it all, hardly recognisable, not because of an order, but out of fear.
To other news now, April 7th has been fixed for Bank of PNG Governor Loy Bakani and National Research Institute Director Dr. Osborne Sanida to give evidence before the Commission of Inquiry into the UBS Loan. Both men appeared before the full commission today and agreed to return on April the 7th with all necessary documents as required by the Commission.
Governor Bakani and Dr. Sanidar are amongst the list of witnesses the Commission has summoned to give evidence. Bakani is expected to provide information on the status of the PNG economy in the months leading up to the borrowing of the $1.2 billion loan. Other specific questions would relate to the International Petroleum Investment Company or IPIC loan. For Dr. Sanida, he was summoned to to give evidence on research information conducted by the National Research Institute on the economy of the country. He is expected to appear at 1:30 p.m. before the Commission on April the 7th to provide evidence. Finance Secretary Diary Vele told the Commission through his lawyer that they needed more time to collect at least 10,000 documents to assist the inquiry. The Commission has given Mr. Vele up until February the 28th to collect documents, and Mr. Vele is expected to provide both soft and hard copies to the Commission.
And I am now in a position to advise that we have nearly all the documents and all the witnesses, and we should be able to list of witnesses and be able to provide that to this Royal Commission within 2 weeks. So I would seek this Commission's indulgence. And this is no, without preempting what is to be provided, this is essentially the roadmap of Treasury had a large role.
The inquiry comes in 5 stages and the summons phase has been completed. However, the delay in the release of the approved funds from the Finance Department to bring in overseas barristers may further delay the completion of the inquiry come 27th July, the date the Commission anticipates to complete the inquiry. The public hearing concluded today and the Commission has adjourned the inquiry until the 28th of February. Thekla Gunga, National EMTV News.
This is National EMTV News. We'll be back with more right after these messages. Welcome back to the news. 2020 has begun on a positive note for one particular SME in the agriculture sector. Caltep Holdings Limited, through its Grow Hurry Up fertilizer brand today, delivered its first batch of organic fertilizers to Brian Bell Chemicals, who have now agreed to distribute this local fertilizer through the Brian Bell network. Grow Hurry Up is the first locally made fertilizer developed by a career agriculturalist with over 30 years of experience. Caltep Holdings Limited this morning delivered the first batch of Grow Hurry Up foliar fertilizers to Brian Bell Chemicals, signifying the start of a business relationship that is aimed at assisting PNG farmers have access to a product aimed at improving their produce yields. According to Brian Bell Chemicals, they are pleased to partner a local SME through the Grow Hurry Up brand in making this product available via its extensive retail network, beginning with outlets in Port Moresby and Lae.
And the inventor of this product is an agricultural scientist, Chris Tepp, who's got many years of experience there with foliar fertilizers with the agriculture department before inventing this local homemade product. So we're very excited to be embracing this product there for our customers in Papua New Guinea.
The initial order of 90 cartons of Grow Hurry Up was delivered to Brian Bell Chemicals today, which are now available on the shelves in Port Moresby. It is a significant development for the Grow Hurry Up brand that has primarily relied on word of mouth and social media to sell this homegrown organic fertilizer. Fertilizer developer Christopher Tepp is excited at the prospect of this product being readily available through a trusted retail network throughout the country in the months ahead.
I would like to thank Brian Bell team, especially the team at Chemicals, for facilitating delivery of Grow Hurry Up in PNG, and Brian Bell will take it on board, and all the farmers will pick it up from Brian Bell chain right throughout PNG. But to start, Chemicals is going to take on board, and from there slowly it will trickle down after some months to all the branches in PNG. So after 2-3 months, we should have it in all the branches in PNG.
Tepp adds that given the increasing high cost of regular fertilizers, coupled with the effects of climate change, Grow Hurry Up has been organically designed to fit the needs of Papua New Guinean farmers to assist in improving crop yields. He says it is his way of promoting more positive development within agriculture, a sector which he has been a part of for more than 30 years.
challenges brought about by climate change is affecting and sweeping right across PNG. It's not the same kind of farming anymore. And so we have a situation coming between now the farmers are struggling to meet the production requirements to feed the population. It has to be enhanced by a product that is locally available at a cheaper price and also is good for the environment. From my 35 years of experience in agriculture, I saw the need for the farmers to upscale production and also to sustain their farms. And so from the experience, I realized that we had to do something for them, and that's where Groharep came about.
A rural community in Nawai district now has an open defecation-free status. ODF, for Open Defecation Free, is a project aimed at promoting good hygiene at the rural level. The Nawai community status came after participating in World Vision's Clean Pillar Community project. The community is the 6th in the district to receive ODF status.
Kasuka in Nawai district has a growing population of over 100 people. It is one of 200 other targeted communities under World Vision's Clean Pillar Community project. Kasuka was recognized as an open defecation-free community yesterday after complying with hygienic defecation practices.
So at the moment, like in Kasuka, it's our 6th community now. They've self-declared. It's because the community is taking initiative to ensure that all household has its own standard toilet in place. So the mentality and then the attitude and the behavior of just community members going out and defecate openly, we're trying to minimize or totally stop that.
The Clean Pillar Community project aims to increase accessibility to clean, sustainable water supply and to improve sanitation and hygienic practices at the rural level. Nawai district is piloting the Clean Pillar Community project for the Momase region.
They are trying to see how the Nawai is doing, and then they have to draw up a strategy for the province so that they can implement this program in other districts, like in the Morobe, and it's not only for Morobe, but other provinces as well.
Kasuka community leader and the ward councillor Tako Warin was impressed with the changes after participating in the project. Each household now has specifically designed toilets with good ventilation and a place to wash their hands afterwards.
Previously, I think me play in Pekpekwara and me one play big plastic long this la community. Plenty time me play walk around Belpen, Pekpekwara. But time this la program come and become a big plus and it's through me play looking.
World Vision is working in partnership with Nawai District Development Authority and the Provincial Health Division to roll out the Clean Pillar Community project. Charlene Airy, National EMTV News, Ley.
Chairman of the PNG Hearts for Australia Fire Appeal 2020, Paul Narrow, is calling on all fundraising drives to channel all proceeds into the group account. This, he says, is to avoid any misuse of funds intended to help those affected in Australia's plight with the bushfires.
While Australia continues to rebuild itself from the record blazes which swept across the continent, PNG sympathizes with its traditional neighbour at the loss of life, property, wildlife and environment. Individual families, interest groups, business and government officials continue to raise funds to send to the families affected. The PNG Hearts for Australia Fire Appeal 2020 is the group recognised by the government to combine all funds from within the country for the Prime Minister to deliver on the nation's behalf.
The Prime Minister basically came out to say we are the official appeal where all the different collections or programs that are carried out for the appeal they were doing, it will be channeled to us. At the end of our program, which is for about 8 weeks, we put together money and then give to our Prime Minister to present to his counterpart in Australia.
Chairman Nerau calls on all groups to channel all proceedings into the one basket to avoid misuse.
I am advocating the fact we want to now tell the world and tell our people that we want to do things following global benchmarks. For instance, at our launch, we had one of our public chartered accountant, KTK, to come on board to look after all our books.
More fundraising drives are planned by interest groups and businesses in the coming weeks. The PNG Hearts for Australia Fire Appeal, which is made up of kind-hearted Papua New Guinean professionals, has an ambitious task, setting a target of 5 million kina in 8 weeks.
I'm optimistic. I think we have Papua New Guineans who are very generous. Giving is part of our culture, and we're doing it for people that we know have helped us as well. And everywhere throughout Papua New Guinea, the whole country, people have received some kind of a benefit to the Australian people. And I think it's time that we give with the open heart.
Proceeds can be channeled into the Fire Appeal account. A mobile platform has also been set up for donations. Bradley Valenaki, National EMTV News.
Staff union at the Enga Hospital in Lae are taking the lead to remove acting CEO Grant Muddle amidst allegations of misappropriation. The doctors' union representatives said they would respond to the statement released by the Morobe Provincial Health Authority chairman and request for a roundtable discussion with the board. They say if the meeting does not happen within 48 hours, further action will be taken.
At midday today, staff at the Enga Hospital in Lae returned to work and were advised that the staff unions will pursue the concerns raised over acting CEO Grant Muddle's appointment. These unions include the Doctors and Nurses Associations, community health workers and other professions in the hospital. Mamasa Doctors Union representative Dr. Stephen James said they will request to meet with the Morobe Provincial Health Authority Board to get responses over these allegations against the acting CEO, Grant Muddle.
So inside legislative roundtable discussion, we want to discuss point by point, all or something, so we can have an open, discussion as to how these things are being, run.
The staff petition to remove Mr. Muddle was based on allegations of misappropriation of hospital funds, breach of public service laws, and his appointment as acting CEO. According to the union representatives, they will request for the meeting with the board within 48 hours. Further action will be taken by the unions if the meeting does not happen.
If that lapses, that means the board and the executive management are not listening to us, so we will have to go further.
Meanwhile, operations at Enga will continue while the unions handle the matter with the board and relevant authorities. Lucy Kopana, National EMTV News, Lae.
You're watching Wednesday's news. When we return, we take a look at stories making headlines overseas. Welcome back to National EMTV News. Turning overseas now, the British government has granted Chinese telecom giant Huawei a limited role in Britain's future 5G mobile network. Huawei has welcomed the decision and criticised the Australian government's decision to block the company's access to Australia's 5G rollout.
With respect to Huawei, the Australian government banned Huawei in 2012 from its NBN bill. So there was a different approach way back in time. And the UK similarly have had Huawei in their network since 2003. So very different approach by both countries with respect to different vendors.
So taking that into account, do you think the Australian government was justified in that decision or not?
I'm not going to second guess, obviously, an Australian government decision, but I think they've been very open, as have the intelligence agencies here in Australia, in talking about some of the public reasons why they came to the decision. And I think, as has the UK, both the UK has gone on the record and Australia as saying they were risk-based decisions, and both countries came at it from a risk-based approach. And that's how both governments have justified those decisions.
And why were the Brits saying there was less of a risk over there?
Well, that's a good question. Again, I think it gets back to how you look at risk, and it's entirely, I should say, it's entirely appropriate for each country to come to different views, and each sovereign country has the ability to do that. I think it's a bit like most things. A risk is all in the eye of the beholder, and how they've assessed the risk for the UK is different to how we have done it here, and they've looked at different aspects of the network. I think it's fair to say, while they may not agree, what they do agree on is a risk-based approach has been taken, and they've been upfront about that. They just have a different view of how they want to manage it.
Is this likely to change the minds of any other countries when it comes to Huawei?
Obviously, it's hard to say. We've seen very publicly that Germany is also in the midst of deciding its procurement for the 5G rollout there, and there's very heated debate in Germany around whether, again, high-risk vendors will be allowed to compete in that procurement process. In others, they have been allowed to. It's a very heated debate because this decision made by all countries around 5G network build is not just one that will impact them today or next year. It will have a huge impact in at least decades to come.
Donald Trump's long-awaited Middle East peace plan, unveiled today, is dead on arrival. The Palestinians calling it a slap of the century, the leaders responding 100 times no. The proposal to try to solve one of the world's longest-running conflicts between Israel and the Palestinians includes the controversial promise to keep Jerusalem as Israel's undivided capital.
President Trump calls this the deal of the century. Prime Minister Netanyahu said it was an historic day for Israel and one of the most important days of his life. Mr. Trump has absorbed Israel's agenda and started with one of its top priorities.
Under this vision, Jerusalem will remain Israel's undivided, very important, undivided capital.
Mr. Netanyahu compared this day to Israel's Independence Day in 1948.
For too long, far too long, the very heart of the land of Israel, where our patriarchs prayed, our prophets preached, and our kings ruled,